Morning, we will call the March 8th, 2022 special call council meeting to order. If you would please rise and join me in the invocation and pledge. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we come before you today giving thanks. We ask you to be with our council today as they make decisions that affect our city. Lord, we ask you to watch over those domestically and abroad that are being impacted by this horrendous war in Ukraine. Be with us as we make decisions today. Be with our city. Be with our county and our state as we go forward. Ask these things in your Son's name. Amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Item 3 is roll call. Sandy sees that all council members present with the exception of Councilman Cisco. Item 4 is invitation for public comment. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to an item under first reading, you recognized at that time and ask you to come up at that time, name and address when you provide your public comment. First reading, consideration of an ordinance to reapportion the 9 council districts of the city of Jackson. All right, I believe, so we heard from the presentation from the committee last week. The council voted to postpone and table this decision until we can be provided the maps and the proposal from the group. I can't remember the name. So Mr. Carter, if you can come up here and call you up, and then we can have any questions and make your presentation, because I think we've heard from the last presentation, so we hear from this presentation, then if any questions for the group that did design the maps, we can ask questions from them as well. They are available virtually, correct, Kenny?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to run us through the process, and if they have any questions from the group that did the maps, then they can ask questions from that group?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and City Council. The process that we've employed through Tufts University is a well-known university with tremendous experience in drawing these maps, and they are, in the present time, assisting Texas in redrawing their state maps. And they're led by a young lady, whose name escapes me now, but is well known in this field. The person that you will be talking with, and Byron, if you would come up, Byron, he's been working mostly with Byron Elam, our civic engagement chair. We took a look at the original map that was proposed. And when we took a look at the data, 53% was people of color. And so when we started this, we had talked with members of the committee, Byron, Dr. Woods, and eventually the map that was proposed by the planning department, 6-3, was not acceptable. The situation is that with African American population, with Hispanic population, with Asians and others, it would seem right to proportion, as the census indicates, throughout the years that we've had the census, to make sure that it's proportionally redistricted every 10 years. That's what we're looking at, and we appreciate the council for allowing us to present this on this read at this time. And Byron, you can talk with the council about the lady that's going to help us from Tufts University.
You have Ms. Chanel Richardson, who's a research analyst for the MGGG Redistricting Lab, which is a research group based out of Tufts University.
Are there any questions right now for Mr. Carter, Mr. Elam, or Stan, or if there are any questions for, give her name one more time, Mr. Elam, I just left me. What's her name? Richardson?
Chanel Richardson.
And Ms. Richardson? Mm-hmm. If there are any questions for any of them, if you want to have a question for Ms. Richardson, then we can bring her online now.
Mayor, I have a quick question, if I may. So, just to be clear, the map was drawn
by Ms. Richardson and her group?
Correct.
Okay. And the local branch of the NAACP, did they retain that group, or they're just working with them?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
And can Ms. Richardson kind of walk us through what her laboratory, what the lab does and their approach to redistricting and their goals and that
If we can-
outcomes?
Yeah, we can bring her online.
Okay.
They're in Connecticut, correct?
Massachusetts. I believe.
Massachusetts, okay, all right. Ms. Richardson, can you hear us?
I can. Can you all
Okay.
hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Great. I would also like to point out that our labs leader, Dr. Munduchin, is on the call as well, and she will contribute to this presentation. But our lab is centrally focused on the redistricting problem, both by doing academic research in the field, as well as doing some nonpartisan consulting work for various agencies, civil rights organizations, independent commissions, and state governments.
Yeah, I think Ms. Richardson made the question from Councilman Taylor was to walk through the process of coming to the maps that were presented today.
Of course.
Great. If it's all right with everyone, I'll cut in. As Chanel said, my name is Moon Duchin. I'm a professor of mathematics at Tufts University, and I direct the lab that Chanel works in. And I'll take a moment, if it's all right, and just introduce what we did. Would it be okay to get screen sharing access?
Yes, I think we can
Yeah.
make that happen.
Make that happen, Kenny.
If they can.
Great. And then while that's coming, I'll just amplify what you just heard from Ms. Richardson. So we're a nonpartisan group. We do call ourselves the Redistricting Lab. And we do support for line drawing bodies of various kinds around the country. We did community collection for the Michigan Department of State to support their independent commission. We supported the independent commission in New Mexico and did mapping support for the redistricting board in Alaska, to name just a few. So we do nonpartisan work around the country. And I'm trying to unlock. Okay, this seems like this will give me screen sharing access. It looks like I might have to restart in order to get screen sharing access, so I will do that and be right back.
While she's doing that, Ms. Richardson, could you tell us a bit about your background?
Sure. So I guess we'll start, from the beginning a bit. I did my undergrad at Tufts University, became familiar with the lab, and now I've been in the lab for the past 6 months. I've gotten to work on a variety of projects, all very computationally oriented. But over the past few months, as we're well underway with the redistricting cycle, I've just been analyzing new maps that have come out and have become very familiar with some of the common metrics that we use to determine if a map is fair and good.
Thank you.
Okay, it looks like I still don't have the ability to share my screen, unfortunately. That's okay, I can talk through some of what we were thinking about without showing you the slides that I had prepared. Okay, yeah. Chanel, meanwhile, you might check if your screen sharing works. Okay, so I'll just talk through a few principles that we use when we assist with local redistricting. So one important principle is to avoid what in redistricting is called packing and cracking. So that term is probably known to many of you. And what those words mean is packing is when a group is concentrated into a small number of districts with very high population shares. And cracking is when a group is spread over a large number of districts, but in numbers that are too small to have access to electoral opportunity. And what you look for instead is for an efficient distribution of population across the district so that you can have a non-dilutive access to voting power. In addition to that, you have to balance the avoidance of packing and cracking with respect for what are called the traditional districting principles. And principally, those are, you need to balance the population. The districts have to be contiguous, which means they're connected. You look for compact districts, so they should be nicely shaped and not too erratic or not too elongated. And importantly, you try to respect communities of interest. And to do that, it's fundamentally important to talk to folks who live in the area that's being redistricted. And if you talk to people in Jackson, you might, of course, hear about East Jackson. You might hear about Midtown. You might hear about Old Hickory. These are neighborhoods that you should have in mind. Importantly, to respect communities of interest when you do redistricting doesn't necessarily mean you keep an area completely whole. With an eye to packing and cracking, sometimes it's more effective to judiciously split a community or neighborhood over 2 districts to get better access to electoral opportunity. And finally, I'll mention the principle of being mindful of recent maps. So looking at incumbents, looking at district cores as a kind of second order consideration. So the last thing I'll say before handing it over to my colleague, Chanel Richardson, is we took a close look at the census data, the new 2020 census data for Jackson, which shows that the city now has 68,205 residents, of which 46%, a little more than 46%, identify as Black on their census forms. And in fact, a little more than 54% identify as minority groups of various kinds, what I'll call people of color. So again, people of color make up 54.4% of the population in Jackson, according to the latest census data. And since there are 9 districts, 5 out of 9 is 55%, 4 out of 9 is 44%. So you might be looking to get 4 or 5 majority minority districts out of 9 in order to best reflect those population shares. Okay, hopefully that brief introduction sets up some of the numerical analysis and some of the maps that Chanel Richardson will show. When she's winding down, I will put links in the chat to online mapping software that you can use to explore these maps. We'll be showing you, we weren't able to obtain from the city electronic files, mapping files of the city's proposed districts, but we reconstructed those districts in mapping software. And so we'll give you links so that you can explore for yourself the city's proposed 9 council districts compared to a Plan A and a Plan B that Luis Delgadillo, who is a mapper in our lab, was able to draw. So I'll hand it off to you, Chanel, and I'm on hand to answer any questions if needed.
Great, thank you, Moon. I will go ahead and attempt screen sharing. Please just give a thumbs up or thumbs down that you can see my screen.
Looks great.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us this morning. My name is Chanel Richardson, and I am joined by Moon Duchin, representing MGGG. We will be examining 3 different maps today, 2 drawn by our colleague Luis Delgadillo, who cannot be here with us this morning, and use it as a point of comparison for the council's newest proposed map. And so the council's map has 3 majority POC districts, as well as 1 district that we would call close in the 40 to 50% range. The maps that we created achieve 4 majority minority districts with 1 close district. And then our Plan B has 5 majority minority districts. So this morning, I will take you through a few different things about these maps. First, I will give a breakdown of the share of Black voters in each district and each map. Then I will talk about incumbent pairing, and finally talk about some of the traditional principles we consider when drawing maps. At the end, I will leave some time for questions, so I ask that all non-urgent questions and comments be held until then. Okay, so I will go ahead and jump right in. This slide just gives some visual indicators of the Black voting age population in each district and each plan. We used a definition of Black called any part Black. This means that a person on the census could have marked Black as their only race or Black in combination with other races or ethnicities. By this description of Black voting age, Jackson has 43.21% overall share of Black voting age population. And so we can just dive right into each of these maps. The council's plan, as can be seen here, has 3 majority Black districts, all located in East Jackson. These are districts 2, 3, and 4. And what is evident by this shading pattern that we used is that 2 of these districts are over 75% Black, districts 2 and 4. And this is indicative of some packing within the map. We found that it is easy to spread these Black voters out across more districts in the map and create more opportunity by redrawing districts within these areas. And so a first pass at that was Plan A, created by Luis to have 4 majority Black districts and 1 close district that is 39% Black. You can see that even with 4 majority Black districts, one of these districts is still somewhat packed, District 4. So we took another pass at it to see, could there be 5 majority minority districts and get rid of this packing altogether, which is presented here in Plan B. All 5 of these districts, 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6, which are around the south and eastern parts of Jackson, are between 50 and 75% Black. And on the next slide, I will actually be giving a district by district breakdown of the percentage of Black voters and POC voters in each of these districts. What's interesting is that even when we reach 5 majority Black districts and remove some of that packing, we are still comfortably over 50% Black in these districts. And so I'll just take a slight pause here if you all want to take a bit of a longer look at some of these maps. Okay, and so now looking at this table, we can see the district by district comparison out of 9 districts for the Black voting age population share in each district, as well as the POC voting age population share in each district. To reiterate, the council's map had 3 majority Black districts, our Plan A had 4 majority Black districts, and Plan B had 5 majority Black districts. And you can see that these percentages in districts 2 and 4 are very high in the council's plan, once again to confirm some packing of Black voters into these districts. And even in our Plan A, I would say that District 4 is a little on the higher side as percentages go of Black voting age population share. But when we get to Plan B, we see that these are all comfortable percentages, 65.31 being the max Black voting age population share, which really helps to equalize Black voters across various districts. Oops. And then, yeah, just to take another look at the POC voting age population share, these numbers are very heavily correlated. Considering POC population does not give you any more majority districts. So there is no district that has less than 50% Black voting age population share that has more than 50% POC voting age population share. All right. So moving along from some of the demographic aspects of these maps, I will talk about incumbent pairing in each of these maps. So the council's plan does a really great job with incumbent pairing. Even though there are 3 incumbents here in the middle, none of them are actually paired in the same district. And it's clear that this was likely a goal for the council, a very specific goal that they had not to pair incumbents. As Luis was drawing maps, we were sort of given a guideline to consider incumbents, but not a requirement to make sure that incumbents remained unpaired. So District 5 here in the middle of the map does pair 3 incumbents, Pretty, Skinner, and Brooks, leaving districts 3 and 4 without any incumbents. However, we think this is okay. One of the big communities that we were sort of told was important in Jackson was East Jackson. And I think that the way the map is and where the incumbents are located, this gives District 4 a great opportunity to elect someone who truly represents East Jackson. And then our Plan B does pair quite a few more incumbents. There are 3 incumbents here in District 5, 2 here in District 8, as well as 2 here in District 1. However, this was a trade-off that we made to get to those 5 majority-minority districts.
Well, actually, if I could chime in, I'll say there are other aspects of Plan B. It's not a map that only considers majority-minority districts. You'll also notice from looking at the images that it's the most compact. And that's an important traditional districting principle as well. So, the names Plan A and Plan B indicate that we think Plan A might be a stronger choice than Plan B, but the presence of Plan B indicates that, especially if you let incumbency considerations be secondary, you can achieve excellent population balance, as you'll hear in a moment, excellent compactness, and more electoral opportunity for the minority groups.
And to that point, there was one thing that I think is important to highlight. While we were not able to get the council's plan directly, it was clear by looking at it that some census blocks were split when creating this plan. This was likely to achieve this incumbent protection, but that is such an uncommon practice in redistricting and something that our plans don't do. So there are trade-offs on both sides for achieving incumbency pairing or lack of incumbency pairing within the map. And finally, I will move on to talk about some of more of these traditional principles. As Moon noted, Plan B is considerably more compact than these other two plans. And we also considered population deviation and the number of precincts that were split in each plan when looking at these traditional principles. We were not given a specific guideline for the population deviation allowed within each district. So in drawing these maps, Luis decided that plus or minus 100 people max in each district would be a good threshold. And so we have slightly less population deviation than the council's plan, whose district with the most deviation is 141 people over the ideal population of 7,578 people per district. And then the compactness, I would say that all of these are in the same range. We use the average Polsby-Popper score across the plan to look at compactness. However, Plan B is the most compact. When looking at a city, I would say that it's probably a little more difficult to achieve higher compactness. When looking at Polsby-Popper, the score can be from 0 to 1. Closer to 1 is more compact. But even just reviewing some of the boundaries of the city here, you can see that already these are not conducive to compactness. And then you have a smaller area to spread out across to create districts that are of more regular shapes. And finally, we take a look at the precinct splits. We try to split as few precincts as possible across plans. However, our plans A and B do split one more precinct than the council's plan. However, to reiterate, the council's plan does split blocks and our plans don't do that. I would say that 16 versus 15 is a comparable compromise when looking at these two new alternative plans. And I've also included here the compactness and population deviation per district in each plan. I will not take the time to go through this now, but should you be curious about that and choose to look through these slides later, that will be here, and I encourage you to take a further look. And so that is all that I have for a brief overview of these maps. It's kind of clear to see that because of how people of color are spread out across Jackson, it is easy to unintentionally pack voters of color into certain districts, leaving less opportunity in other districts. But we've shown that it is completely possible to create 4 and even 5 majority-minority districts in Jackson and still keep comparable traditional principles in place when doing so. So I will take any questions. I will leave my email up as I do, and there are some links here for each of the plans that are also being dropped into the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Is there any questions for Ms. Richardson?
Yes,
Mr.
Mr. Chairman.
Chairman.
Oh, go ahead, Councilwoman.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, and thank you for being here. At first, you all said that you did consider the areas in Jackson, and I believe that you talked to a few people. Can you express who you talked to and what information you gathered in that?
Our main point of contact was Byron Elam.
Okay.
And that's who conveyed to us the names and the significance of the certain neighborhoods that I mentioned at the beginning. And that's our principal Jackson contact.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Kelvin?
Yes, ma'am. Do y'all have a copy? We received, when the email was sent out Sunday morning with, I believe what it was, the Plan A, is that correct, Mr. Elam?
Yes.
Okay, so Sunday morning when we received the Plan A, there was a spreadsheet with some population statistics. Do y'all have a copy of that that you could explain to us?
Population statistics to what end?
I believe relevant to the way that the proposed maps were created.
Um,
I'm
I
not
mean-
sure it's distributed, but are these numbers the ones that you're interested in? The ones that look at the black share and the people of color share per district?
No, ma'am, this is different than what we were sent.
It was a breakdown of partisan affiliation, race, I believe.
Yeah, I just had some
It was an
questions
Excel
about that.
spreadsheet.
Okay. I wasn't sure where
Louise
that came
sent.
from, but.
Sam's got it.
So
I
we-
see. I'm not sure we have that, but the links that I just dropped in allow you to go into, and I should quickly give a shout out to Dave's redistricting app. So our lab has created free software that you can use in your browser to explore a plan, but we don't go down to the block level. So we used another free redistricting app called Dave's redistricting app that you can get to by following these links. And that will give you a breakdown of whatever you want. Partisan properties, you can choose elections to view. You can look at the race breakdown per district. In fact, since I'm having trouble sharing my screen, Chanel, could you maybe open one of those and let's take a look. If you open the Jackson City map link, that also has the incumbents marked, so that might be a helpful one to look at.
Just give me a moment to get that.
And while she's pulling that up, I'll just mention, any kind of partisan statistics and so on should come with a big caveat. That was absolutely not a consideration for us in any way. It's just stats that you can see in the software. But for us, the only considerations were the ones that I mentioned, the traditional districting principles, and to unpack the Black population in some of the districts.
Of course. And what I'm referring to, like I said, there's a spreadsheet attached to the Plan A map that we were sent Sunday morning. And I'm not really concerned with the partisan breakdowns because we are a nonpartisan body. However, there's a total voter age population that indicates about 73% of that population is white, while 26% of that population is minority. So I was just kind of hoping someone could speak to that and how that influenced the breakdown. But unfortunately, it appears we've perhaps worked off of different information.
Oh,
someone
well,
can
that's right. We
clarify
should
that
be able
for
to
us.
reproduce it. Chanel, could you maybe also open up Plan A so we can take a look at that?
Yes.
And so this is reflected on the slides that you saw from Chanel a little bit ago, which show that in the proposed map by the city, you have over 80% minority population in one of the East Jackson districts, and that number was reduced. Okay, we'll compare that as soon as we get it up on the screen here.
Well, I understand that total population is how we're shifting our districts, but I was wondering what the influence that was and how this data, and to clarify, this spreadsheet that I'm referring to that we have, I was basing my understanding of the map off, it didn't really come with many instructions. We got a map, we got a spreadsheet, and then it said it was being worked on with y'all, which, by the way, y'all done researching the work yesterday. Y'all done some really impressive stuff. I just want to understand how this data was, that I was given Sunday morning reflects this map, and I'm not sure if it does. So I'm just running into a little confusion because I was basing, like I said, my understanding of the way the map was drawn off the information we received Sunday morning. But it appears to be
I see.
in conflict of the data y'all are working with. So
Yeah.
I just trying to clarify, that's all.
Yeah, the
Byron,
numbers-
can you
the
speak to
numbers
that?
are different.
I believe that the spreadsheet that you have is merely an Excel sheet of what is on the screen.
I think so,
The
too.
same information.
It's, the numbers don't align. That's
Yeah.
that's where I'm confused. So I'm just trying to clarify.
Where exactly is there discrepancy then of what's on the screen?
Can you put that up?
Yep, let's put
Well,
the one that we were looking up. Can
If we do, we have to, we can't put it up on the screen. We have to
Yeah,
shift off from that to put it up on the screen.
you?
if we run down this is the table here, Jackson Plan
Right,
A.
this is what's on the screen.
And we look at white, just running down the white column there. That aligns with number one, 53.86, 0.5386, 29.95, 69. So those columns are aligning there. It appears that the minority does too. I think the question you had, Mr. McKelvey, was the totals at the bottom.
That's correct, the summary,
Right.
yes. 'Cause, yeah, that's different, and I'm just, like I said, it's
Oh, I
different.
see.
Yeah, the one that I was originally studying this plan off of, leading up until this morning, is different, so I'm just trying to
It is.
understand
The,
It
the,
is.
the
I
summary
think I know
row
why.
is, the summary row is where the confusion's happening. I think.
Correct.
that's correct, yeah, those numbers are
I
in
see.
line,
I'm,
so.
I'm sorry to talk over you. I think I know why. It's because probably the one that you have has a summary row for the whole state of Tennessee. But what you see on the screen now is Jackson specific.
Yeah, that would, because there's 598,000 people in total voting
Yeah.
age.
Yeah,
And surely
that was-
that's incorrect.
Right, well, that's the part that wasn't clear to me, because,
Right.
We're
that's
growing.
where- That's where we were studying last night,
Okay.
in those numbers.
And to be fair, this is the same information that we received from the city. We received a summary printout as well as a map.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah,
Yes,
I was just-
mine didn't include the state, but
No, you're right. You didn't include the state.
well, it was just unclear, I mean, it's a simple mistake, I just want to make sure we had a clear understanding, because like I said, I was
I agree.
basing my knowledge up until this morning off of what I received on that spreadsheet.
Right.
Thank you for that clarification, Councilman.
And I'll add, we're happy to provide supporting statistics or a fresh spreadsheet with updated numbers. Anything that we can do to support, we're happy to help out.
Are any additional questions?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Elam, the map that was sent to us, if I understand correctly, is this Plan A
Plan A.
of those two?
Correct.
And then, could you speak to a little bit of, I guess, the preference of Plan A over Plan B on, is that, because Plan A is the one that you are proposing for us to consider, is that correct? Or is Plan B, I was just kind of, is Plan B on the table as well, or just Plan A?
I think Mr. Carter can speak more to that. I was working with Plan A, and there was
Okay.
another map developed. He can speak to that.
Right, we had originally talked about two plans. One that we're trying to keep some of the incumbents into their areas, and then we looked at it from a different angle. And then when we found that the numbers that has been shown corresponds to what we believe is fairness, we went ahead and had them draw two maps to show that this is a situation with the original
Those
plan
maps.
that is unfair. And so this is why we did the comparison.
Can we see those maps as you're talking about them, the two maps?
Yeah, they were on the
Yeah,
screen
there's a
as well.
slide. We can pull the slide. Ms. Richardson, if you can pull the slide up of the three maps,
The three maps comparison.
please.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, while they're doing that, I'd like to ask our friends from afar, between the two plans, A and B, do y'all have a recommendation?
I'm sorry, was that a question for us or for Mr. Elam?
Yeah, it was for the two of you. Yeah,
Okay.
do you have any guidance or recommendation as far as A versus B, what you would recommend?
Well, I'll mention that it depends on the local priorities. Plan B as both plans A and B are more population balanced than the city proposal. B prioritizes compactness and proportionality. And A has, if you look at these images, you can see A has a lot more deference to the city's shapes. You'll notice District 1 looks extremely similar, District 2 looks extremely similar, and there's an effort not to pair incumbents excessively. So on balance, we think Plan A is very strong. The presence of Plan B should illustrate that A is not maximizing representation for people of color. It's getting something closer to, but not even quite at proportionality. And so overall, we think A is a very strong plan. But the ability to easily draw B should put into context the range of possibilities in front of the council. I'll just repeat, in summary, we think A is extremely strong, and the presence of B shows that A is not an aggressive overreach. It's a fairly moderate unpacking that starts with the council's plan and makes a few changes in order to get additional electoral opportunity.
So A is what you would recommend?
That's right. A is what I would recommend, personally, speaking for myself. Chanel, would you agree?
I would agree.
It helps us, I think, all to understand that the possibility exists when we talk about a district that is five district seats for people of color. We look at that, and that's a possibility, because that means that we've got a wide range to choose from. But certainly the original plan that the city presented was not accurate to the extent that it needs to be.
I'd move that we proceed with Plan A.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion is second. This is an
And
item
I'd
on,
like to finish my motion.
Oh.
I'd also move that Mr. Pilot works with this group to define the metes and bounds of the areas and prepare those for the council for our next meeting.
okay, motion second, still continue down there?
Yes, that's fine.
All right, this is an item on first reading, and so we will have a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to, be recognized. And so, any more questions for Mr. Carter, Mr. Elam, because I need some seats. Question? Thank you both, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good morning, City Council. I was initially in opposition to the city's proposal. And I brought my Bible with me today to be clean of heart and try to go my words. And it struck me when Mr. Carter stood up to fight for our community for redistricting. And so I called Mr. Elam, and this morning I talked to Mr. Stan Pilot. The problem with this redistricting plan is that you just redistrict, we draw the lines, District 2, 10 years ago. When the storm came in our district, the district lines from District 2 went no further than Royal, maybe a little part of downtown. When the money came in 2010, you redraw the district line. Now, all the development that's supposed to went into District 2, the Chester area corridor in that area, all that development went into District 2, but it went into downtown, according to the redrawing of the district lines. When you redistrict our communities, you take from our communities. You never build. Stan said in a news press release, or maybe council meeting, that a lot of people are moving out north. A lot of blacks are moving out north. Nobody proposed any districts out north for blacks to be populated in. Nobody's proposing. Everything you're proposing is to pack us in. So let me get back to this redistricting, how you want to keep the incumbents in line. You keep the incumbents in line by voter turnout. You took the over 500 apartments, homes that was in the city plan, me and Stan talked this morning, that was designed for District 2 prior to 2010 to redraw the district lines. You took that money, you built the home. I have 3 minutes.
We have a motion, on the table, and our rules dictate you talk about the motion on the table. Your rules, you don't get to talk about whatever you want to. The rules talk about the motion on the table, the public comments for the motion on the table, redistricting now with the proposal of Plan A.
Redistricting. The
Proposal of Plan A, not 2010,
right.
proposal of Plan A now.
The Plan A draws out the line of the new district. What District 2 now is in that area, the plan that Mr. Harold Carter has presented, it cuts out that part of the redevelopment, the District 2. Councilman Dodd's district no longer reaches where it is with Mr. Harold Carter's proposal, with that thing. I studied maps. Me and Stan have been talking about these maps for years. So what I'm talking about is the redrawing of the district line. When you redraw the district line, when there are funds coming, when the funds come into that line, if the district line has drawn into another district, you put the funds for the building of a community right downtown, midtown. The destruction happened in the East Chester area corridor. All development happened downtown, Mr. Mayor. And
Mr. Moore.
I got 3 minutes.
No, you don't, no, Mr. Moore, you don't. You don't get to make your own rules, okay? The rules are you talk about the motion on the table.
The motion on the table.
Listen to me, Mr. Moore, or you're gonna be done, okay? The motion on the table is the redistrict lines that were proposed, redistricting option A, that was proposed today. That's the motion on the table, not what happened in 2003 or 2010, okay?
If I'm not mistaken, let me try to reiterate this. The district lines are drawn every 10 years. That's what the premises of this. This is historically done. This is the premises of this. The incumbents, even though it's not law, it is something that has been historically done. So we're talking about historical action, but I cannot talk about the historical action that happened in this council. So let me get back to, once again, when you redraw the district lines in minority community with the representation, as lack as it is, we once again get cut out of voting privileges. All he said is voting age people, not registered voters. Of course, there are a lot of voting age people in our community. A lot of them don't vote. So when you build new development downtown, people are going to move into it. You're going to be concerned about the development in your community, which is the Atlanta area. You're not concerned about the district that's originally the trouble started in. So when you redraw your district line, I do not agree with what Mr. Harold Carr's and them playing, because it does not. It could be wooded area. Nothing in that is beneficial, and we don't get support in the black community from city government funds anyway. So if you build another district, who's gonna support it financially? Who's gonna give it the aid and benefit? You don't even give the 3 we have now any support. People are moving out north, people are moving out west because you're building out that way. If you build out south, and if you build in East Jackson, people will come. People will come. Quit. The Bible says you're supposed to respect good leadership.
May I ask you a question?
I left home because I got mad at you and Johnny Scott. You and Johnny should work together. Should work together. But you know where my heart is. You know it, man. You ain't got to be like this. I don't want to fight with you. I love my community. How do we grow?
Mr. Moore, I welcome any constructive conversations with you. It seems like the only time that our voices are in the same room is in a public setting where you're telling me how awful we are. So thank you for your time, and we'll open up any opportunities for anyone else to speak. I'm in charge of the meeting, though, Mr. Moore. Thank you.
I'll still rather.
You can talk after the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
God bless you.
Anyone else wish to speak in favor of or opposition to? Ms. Abernathy?
Yeah, Olivia Abernathy. I served on the redistricting committee, so I wanted to speak as as myself who served on that committee. I did not vote for the plan that was proposed because I liked it. I don't think many of the people on the committee did, or any of them did. It seemed like we were voting on what was the only option that was given to us. There were several concerns that were raised during the committee process. If I look at Plan A just from this meeting, that new plan does address all of the concerns that were brought up during the process, including compactness, including representation, including some of the specific concerns that were raised. So if I had, as a committee member, been given those 2 options, I would have voted for Plan A.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Anyone else? Mr. Curlin?
Hello.
Good morning.
I'm Robert Curlin. I also served on the committee. I wanted to bring a few things up. First and foremost, I agree 100% with what Ms. Abernathy just said. There was an original plan put forth that we didn't we weren't really able to deviate too much from with those concerns. I almost did not vote for the plan. I believe Mr. Carter said it was a 6-3 vote. It was actually 4-1. Mr. Elam was the only vote against. I was the next to last to cast a vote and almost did not, because to me, the biggest travesty in the map that we were looking at was it split up the Atlanta Neighborhood Association across 4 different districts. And that's one of the most cohesive neighborhood groups in the entire city. And to me, to split it across more than 2, 3 at the very most where it is now is just an absolute travesty, because you're dividing that voice. And as Mr. Pilot put it to us when we very first sat down, federal law said that we were not able to dilute the traditionally African American districts that we have, which would be districts 2, 3, and 4. So because of that inability to dilute those, in order to achieve the needed balance, we had to move west and north to accommodate for the decrease in District 1, which is south. So because of that, they had to carve into Atlanta, which then split it into 4 neighborhoods. I don't live in Atlanta, but like I said, to me, a neighborhood that cohesive being split across 4 is unconscionable. And when I brought that up to several people in city government, the comment was consistently, well, that gives 4 voices for Atlanta across the council. To which my comment is, if we split up districts 2, 3, and 4 to make it more equitable across the city, why would they not be equally as better served to have 2 or 3 or 4 voices across the district? I will be real honest, when I went on that committee, my hope was that we would come out with a plan like A or B that was a little bit more compact, and something a little bit more equitable across the entire city. I would like to share, though, having done a little bit of looking, this conversation to me is really probably more apropos to county government, because it is partisan and the city is not partisan. And in real numbers, we are looking at 2, possibly 3 elections, depending on when the 2030 census is finished. We'll be looking at 2023 and 2027. So I went back this morning and pulled the numbers from May 5th, 2015 city elections and May 7th, 2019 elections. And out of those, traditionally, District 7, Ms. Wallace's district, casts the most votes by far of any district in the city. Traditionally, District 4, Ms. Skinner's district, casts the fewest votes of the entire city. When you look at the number of people who turned out to vote for mayor versus the number of people who actually voted down ballot for council, you're looking at 99% of the people who voted for mayor, or who voted for mayor. 86% of the people who voted, and this is in 2015, voted for council. So 14% of those, or 13% of the people who voted did not even vote for city council. You look at 2015, we had 11,139 total votes cast in the city out of 68,250 or 205, which means that 93% of the people did not vote for council at all. And there were fewer votes cast in 2019 than were cast in 2015. We had 6 people out of 9 run unopposed in 2015. In 2016, we only had 2 people of 9 run unopposed, but the people who turned out to vote were lower by almost 600 people total than what showed up in 2015. So while I can sit here and tell you that I really like the look of Plan A or Plan B, the decision is now in you guys' hands. But the bottom line is our city elections are determined by the equivalent population of 1.5 of these districts that we're arguing over lines over. It makes no difference about color. It makes no difference about how the makeup is run when you're in a nonpartisan race. The bottom line is we have a community engagement problem across the board. And when you have 16.3% of our population, as we saw in the last election, that are determining who sits up on this dais, that's a huge problem. So to me, rather than the decision is in your hands now as far as the districts go, but rather than going on and on and on about the districts, I think our next order is educating people and making them concerned and realize that all politics are local and it does matter who we have sitting in these chairs up here. Because until we can change that community engagement, we're going to continue to see fewer people running, fewer people wanting to vote for it, and fewer people determining huge steps that our city needs to take over this next decade. And that's really all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Cron, thank you for your passion.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to be recognized at this time?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Sheila Godwin. I live at 747 Lane Avenue in the heart of East Jackson. Even though I'm originally from Oakfield, the heart of Oakfield, but it's still in Madison County. I would like to thank you for being open for change. I support Plan A. Because I feel it gives people the opportunity, the voters the opportunity to be able to have a voice and open for another district. And I had questions in regard to when I read in the Jackson Sun the plan that y'all had presented, but I'm not going to even ask those questions because you have something else on the table. I am concerned because as a person as he read the stacks, I myself ran in some of those races. And I know how hard and confusing it is for people to get voters cards and you're changing districts and they get another voters card somewhere else and they don't know where to vote. And then they get disenfranchised because we're fighting. And I think this sends also a message not only to the city council, but to the city council, also to the county commission too. Because I think there needs to be a change there too. And I say that because I am a candidate. And because I live in the city and my opponent lives in the county. Oakfield, which I'm from Oakfield, so it doesn't matter. But the point is, I want to tell you, I want to thank you for your decision to be open, and that's what we need here, openness and understanding. Just like there's a majority percent in African American, there's majority percent in rural of the other. But we need to come together. And so this is the beginning, to come together. So I thank you. That's why I came to thank you for being open for change, especially after y'all had worked so hard to come up with a plan. So thank you, and I look forward to see you working this plan. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott.
Thank you.
Anyone wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to? Anyone else? One more.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Cindy Boyles, and I'm a resident of Jackson, and I just want to say that I really appreciate, I also appreciate you considering Plan A. I know that a lot of thought and effort went into the city's plan, but this morning, your willingness to consider Plan A shows that you are putting representation, fair representation of the citizens of Jackson over your own political interest, and that says a lot about where your political interest lies. So I just want to thank you and say that I do support Plan A.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of or opposition to? You recognized? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Any additional discussion or questions from council?
I
No?
think
Oh, go ahead.
the only way that we combat the apathy in this community that Mr. Carlin spoke of is by giving opportunity and by engaging with the community. We have to continue to do that. I think this is a big an opportunity for us to take a real strong step forward in that way.
Thank you, Councilman Taylor. Anyone else? Discussions or questions? All right, hearing none. Council, please vote.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay, never mind. Motion passed 8-0.
All right, move on to item 1 under new business. It's consideration of a resolution to enter into a land sale agreement with the Industrial Development Board for the property for Great Wolf Lodge. And I'm going to call on Mr. Cobb, come forward and give us a brief rundown of that.
Y'all all have the resolution in front of you. What this does is it allows the Industrial Development Board to give control of the property so that it can engage in negotiations toward the final agreement with the project. That's the kind of the two-step, three-step process that state law allows for projects like this. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
All right, any questions from council? All right, is there a motion?
So moved.
moved.
Second.
Have a motion, a couple motions in a second. Any further discussions or questions
John,
from council?
I mean, Mayor, I'd like to do more motions like this.
It's a good one.
Future, please. Thank you.
No further discussion. Council, please vote.
Motion passed 8-0.
All right, no other business coming before the council. Meeting's adjourned.